It began with the forging of the Great Ring, deck box. One was made by the MTG Ninja, who above all else desired a deck box for his Lord of the Rings commander deck, and for some reason ended up dressing like a hobbit for this video.
Hey, what's up? It's Jared, the MTG Ninja. Welcome to another video. So there's been a lot of excitement lately around Lord of the Rings because the Universes Beyond set that came out. And like Galadriel said, I was excited to put together a commander deck box with a Lord of the Rings theme.
He really did want to build his own deck box.
So I started off by doing some sketches just to get my ideas out on paper. And the one that I liked the most was to do a Hobbit Hole deck box. Now I've made deck boxes before, but in the past I've made fully 3D printed deck boxes. And the thing that I like about 3D printed deck boxes is that you can get some really cool intricate details from it. For example, you can see it in this Stranger Things deck box that I made with a Demogorgon, or this deck box with Han Solo frozen in carbonite. But the thing that I don't like about 3D printed deck boxes is that the final quality just isn't quite where I want it to be. But I knew that I wanted the deck box to have a Hobbit Hole theme, and so I started off with that, trying to get a good look for the Hobbit Hole. And so I went around looking for already made Hobbit holes and couldn't quite find what I wanted. But after a lot of searching around and a lot of experimenting and a lot of work in 3D programs, I was able to come up with a Hobbit hole that I was satisfied with. And so I printed it off on my 3D printer and it turned out looking really good. And so I went ahead and painted the Hobbit hole as well. And this took me a long time because I had never painted a 3D print before, but I just used my acrylic paints that I use for other kinds of painting, and it worked really well. It just took me a long time because it was my first time painting a 3D print to kind of get the techniques down and get all the colors that I wanted and the looks that I wanted. But in the end, I think it turned out pretty good. So with the Hobbit Hole front done, I had to figure out what I wanted to do for the deck box. And I thought that it would go really well with a wooden deck box. And I felt like that would fit with kind of the earthen Hobbit Hole theme. The only problem is I had never done woodworking before, and so I didn't know how to make a wooden deck box. And so I went around looking at places like Lowe's and Home Depot trying to find some wood, and there weren't a whole lot of good options for me there. And so I talked to my friend Spencer, who does a lot of woodworking, and he gave me some advice about a local woodworking store, and they had a good selection of wood. They had maple and walnut, and I really liked the dark color of the walnut, and so I bought some of that wood. But the thing that I didn't know was that you actually, before you can start doing the woodworking, if you have raw wood that's not straight, you have to mill it, because the raw wood is not straight, and so you have to use a jointer, you have to use a planer so that you can get the wood straight so that you can start doing the woodworking. And so luckily, again, my friend Spencer, he had a jointer and a planer so he could do the milling. So he graciously invited me and my wife over to his shop so that he could help us with the milling. So shout out to Spencer and shout out to my wife for helping with this project, because I couldn't have done it without them. So the milling actually was a lot more work than I expected it to be. And it took us a little while, but we were able to get the wood all milled and ready to cut. And after cutting the wood into the right sizes that we needed, then we were able to glue all the sides together and hold them together with clamps and rubber bands so that the glue could harden. So that was the hard part all done. So afterwards, when I got back home, I did sanding all the sides and edges so that we could get rid of like the little splinters and make everything nice and smooth. And after that, I went ahead and put a clear coat on the wood, and that was to give the wood a nice darker finish, as well as to protect it and to give it a little bit of a glossy look. And so I did about 3 or 4 coats of that clear coat, and then the only things left to do were to put some magnets in for the lid to stay on, and then to glue the Hobbit Hole front onto the deck box. Now this is where I ran into a little bit of trouble, because I had some small magnets that I was planning on using for the lid, but apparently they weren't small enough. And so when I went to drill the holes into the deck box, to get the holes big enough for the magnets to fit in, I had to use a little bit of a bigger drill bit. And so when I drilled the hole into the deck box lid, the drill bit was a little little bit too big, and so it ripped off the sides of the lid. So obviously I was disappointed because I didn't really have a way to fix this with the lid except to make a whole nother lid, and so it was a little bit disappointing. But I was planning on making another deck box anyway. We had enough wood from Spencer that was milled that I could make 2 deck boxes, and so I actually started making a whole nother deck box, because on this one I wanted to make a Hobbit hole that looked a little bit more like Bag End with a green door. And so I did the whole process again with this deck box, and in the meantime I ordered some smaller magnets. And so when the new magnets came and I had everything ready with the deck box, I was able to drill smaller holes into the lid for the magnets, and everything worked out much better this time. And I used some epoxy to keep the magnets in, and I used that same epoxy to glue on the front of the Hobbit hole. And then I clamped everything down so that the glue could set, and that was it. So when I pulled off the clamps, I had my finished Lord of the Rings Hobbit hole deck box. So let's take a look at it. So it was a cool experience to be able to make my first woodworking project probably since high school shop class, and I really like how the deck box turned out, and it's going to be great for my Lord of the Rings commander deck that I'm making. So I'm going to keep the very first deck box that I messed up a little bit on the lid, but the second deck box that I made I'm actually going to be posting up to Etsy, and so if you guys are interested in purchasing it, you can go to my Etsy store. I've got the link down in the description, as well as I should mention, in the meantime while I was working on the deck box, another project that I worked on with a Lord of the Rings theme was I made this little Hobbit hole music box that plays a Lord of the Rings song. And that was a really fun project for me as well, doing a lot of the same things with a little bit of 3D printing, a little bit of painting, a little bit of woodworking. And so I have a couple of those music boxes up on Etsy as well, so go check it out if you're interested. Before you leave, make sure you hit that like button and leave me a comment letting me know what you would like to see me make in the future. This one was a lot of fun, and I would love to hear your ideas on what I should be working on next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, bye.